Buddy, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us in the rain here and in Vancouver. It is 2026, so Happy New Year to everybody and welcome back. 2025 was a year of challenge and opportunity for British Columbia and for Canada. For many British Columbians, it was where we started to see some of the impacts of Donald Trump's attacks on our country here at home. But it was also the beginning and the continuation of British Columbia assuming our role in the new economy that we're building here across Canada, leading the Canadian economy to access markets other than the United States, to diversify those markets, to ensure that we're delivering the jobs for British Columbians, for families, so that we can support the homes and the healthcare and the things that British Columbians need and deserve. With that background, really excited to be here to share with you that we will be leaving shortly this week for a trade mission to India. We'll be visiting New Delhi, Chandigarh, Mumbai, and Bangalore. Minister Ravi Kahlon, Minister of Jobs, will be joining me. It will be a small delegation. And what we're doing is a couple of things. First of all, recognizing that India will be the third largest economy in the world in the coming years. British Columbia is currently the largest trading partner India has in Canada, and we're looking to expand that. By expanding our trade with India, we are able to provide support to communities across the province that have been particularly impacted by Trump's tariffs, especially in the forestry sector, which is a big focus of this mission. I'm very much looking forward to being able to meet with companies and with government officials across India. This is a continuation of our work to diversify markets, most recently on a trade mission to Asia, our second trip to Asia, to deepen those relationships. And that has resulted in significant projects coming forward in British Columbia LNG Canada Phase 2, among others, that will deliver significant job opportunities and prosperity to communities of British Columbians from corner to corner of this province, but also coast to coast to coast of this beautiful country we call home. So with that, I'm very excited to be here with you, and I'm going to turn over to the Minister of Jobs for a few introductory remarks.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you so much. Right. Flip this around. Okay, good morning to everyone. Happy New Year's. I think you still let's say that for a few more days. Of course, the Premier has already shared that we are leaving on a trade mission to India, and this trade mission is about building a stronger, more resilient economy here in British Columbia. It's times like these that these strong partnerships are more important than ever. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and British Columbia is now becoming the economic engine for the entire country. Together, we can do some incredible things. International trade and investment are cornerstone of our Look West economic strategy. Look West charts a bold course for British Columbia, one that strengthens our role in Canada's trade corridor to the Pacific. Our goals are clear. It'll be to diversify beyond the U.S., double our exports, and grow sectors like tech and life sciences. And India is an important part of that vision. The Premier has highlighted that India is on track to be the third largest economy in the world. And as the Premier has noted in the past, in 2024, bilateral trade between India and British Columbia was $2.1 billion, representing 25% of Canada's exports to India. That's a strong foundation for us to build on. And this mission will help us unlock opportunities in forestry, as the Premier has noted, in clean energy, sustainable resources, and innovation, areas where we believe here in British Columbia we already lead. Our tech sector here is thriving. We have lots of opportunities to partner with India. We have 12,000 tech companies here in British Columbia. We host Canada's digital supercluster, and of course we have the fastest growing life science sector in the entire country. And all of those present some real opportunities for us. And this mission isn't just about trade, it's about people. By working with partners in India, we're making sure that BC stays strong, competitive, and ready for opportunities of tomorrow. So no matter what happens in the global space that we're in, our relationships will carry us through. And look forward to being able to share some of the progress from the trip. And I'll pass it back to the Premier.
Thanks, Ravi. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today at Canada Place. We're going to take questions from the media now. All members of the media will have one question and one follow-up. For media on the phone line, please remember to press *1 to enter the queue. And we'll start in person here with Penny Daphlos from CTV.
Hi there. Happy New Year to you both. Just wanted to start out with a question for a colleague. Given what is happening in Venezuela and all the discussions around oil, Premier, are you feeling some more pressure to lift the tanker ban and approve a pipeline? There's so much discussion around oil right now, but given that the U.S. is going to soon have access to cheaper Venezuelan oil, does that change the discussion for you?
Sure. First of all, I think that most Canadians are glad to see the back of Mr. Maduro. He was a bad guy, ran a tyrannical and awful regime in Venezuela, and anyone who has a personal connection to Venezuela and Canada, I'm sure, is glad to see him go. At the same time, I, like many Canadians, I'm sure, find it deeply unsettling to have Donald Trump deciding unilaterally for regime change in different countries and saber rattling towards Greenland and Mexico. I think this is underlining the critical importance of the work that we're going to do on this trade mission to India, being more independent than ever from the United States. We've got to ensure we're as independent as possible from the U.S. right now. The second component of your question is an important one. You might be able to, you can't see it behind me right now, but there is a publicly owned pipeline that feeds into Vancouver Harbor here. It is publicly owned. It's not at capacity. We're happy to work with Alberta and the federal government on ensuring access to Tidewater. But what we don't support, what I don't support, is taxpayers paying for another publicly owned pipeline across the north. The economics have been very challenging for that proposal. There is still no private sector proponent. There's nobody who wants to build it from the private sector. If the price of oil is staying low and continues to stay low, I expect there to be calls for another publicly funded pipeline when we don't even use the one that we have to full capacity. So if we're going to do public investment into our resources here in Canada, I think it might be time to pivot that discussion to a refinery. We still buy oil products from the United States. I don't understand why, if we're talking about massive public investment into supporting Albertans in this fragile global time, we can't talk about supporting all Canadians with oil and gas products that are made right here at home while we transition. And so I hope that that's where some of the conversation goes following the uncertainty that comes from Venezuela, but we'll see.
The follow-up is about the trade mission itself. Typically, excursions like this, it takes a couple of years at best to be able to see some result from this. And so I just wonder, do you have an accelerated timeline? And what's your measure of success to go all the way over there, have all these meetings, take time away from here? What's the measure of success for a mission like this?
Yeah, this is a time of huge global upheaval, and families are feeling that at home in British Columbia because of the actions of the President of the United States. Because of that uncertainty and the challenges that the actions of President Trump have brought, this is also a time of remarkable opportunity. India itself has been the target of significant tariffs by the Trump administration. They're looking to quickly deepen relationships with countries other than the United States. There is a window of opportunity for British Columbia, which is the leading province in Canada in terms of trade with India, to deepen our relationship and expand the trade that we already do with a country that is going to be the third largest economy in the world. And so it is essential that as a province, we're there and we're supporting people in our province, especially when I think about the forestry sector, accessing those other markets and providing some resilience to those sectors, while also growing sectors that are moving very quickly, like the mining sector, the tech sector in our province. It is a long-term project, no question, deepening these relationships, but British Columbia has a significant head start. We have deep people-to-people ties. We have significant trade with India already, and India is looking for partners like us, and we're looking to support British Columbians by taking advantage of the opportunity that's here.
Next, we'll head to Aaron MacArthur from Global News.
Happy New Year, Premier.
Thanks, Aaron.
I want to ask you about the end of the decriminalization pilot that happens at the end of this month. Your government has called this a mistake, and yet there's no indication whether you will ask Health Canada for an extension or let it lapse. I'm sure British Columbians and police agencies would like to know where your government stands on this program.
Well, we're working closely with the federal government on this, but let me be clear, we are not going back to the old policy of decriminalized public drug use in British Columbia. It didn't work, and we ended that. So we're in close conversations with the federal government. I look forward to having more to share soon about that.
Hello. By way of a follow-up, I wanted to ask about the DRIPA Amendment Act that your government passed. There were questions at the time about whether this needed to happen. It needed to be put into legislation from the opposition. Your government closed debate on that. Looking at all of the what's gone on over the last couple of months around this issue, do you think that was a mistake?
Well, there are some bright lines that we have and have had through this whole process. One is that it's government's responsibility, not the courts, to work with First Nations and address issues of reconciliation. So we'll be amending the Declaration Act to ensure that that is clear. The second bright line is around private property. We had a recent decision in Cowichan where the court implicated private homeowners and business owners in a land claim decision. We are working hard on our stay application to put a pause on that decision. We expect to be able to file it soon once the orders are finalized from the original court decision. Protecting private property, protecting people's homes is non-negotiable. People's homes and businesses are not negotiating chips for reconciliation. So ensuring that we continue to respond to these court decisions is crucial. But what is not on the table is abandoning discussions with First Nations. That would bring nothing but economic chaos. When I talk about the major projects we have in this province, and there are 6 LNG export projects, for example. We just reached a milestone with Mount Milligan, a massive mine, a multi-$100 million investment over the Christmas break, Artemis, a $1.5 billion additional investment in a gold mine, and the Northwest area representing tens of billions of dollars of investment, thousands of jobs. All of these are dependent on negotiations and partnership with First Nations so we can move quickly, and we are moving quickly, expediting permit times, creating jobs for British Columbia, creating stability. We can't afford the chaos of abandoning that work, the loss of employment that the Conservatives would bring by ending these conversations. But we do have to make sure our laws reflect the intentions and bright lines that we have. Protect private property. This is government's job, not the courts, and we'll make sure that's the case.
Next, we'll head to Monica Gould from City News.
Hi, thanks, Premier. As you go on this new trade mission, just wondering specifically, looking back on the previous trade mission, what you have to show for it. And I know that it does take time to make progress with these trade missions, but you know, what has changed with our trading relationship between last year, this time to now, when it comes to the countries that you visited? You know, do we have more trading partners in South Asia? Do we have more exports going to some of the countries that you visited?
Yeah, thanks. One of the big focuses of our work, particularly in Asia, was to visit the partners that we had already that were working in the province to find additional opportunities for investment in the province. And as just one example of the product of the work that we've done is the advancement of the LNG Canada Phase 2 project, which is reaching final investment decision this year. This is a coalition of countries that includes Korea, Japan, Malaysia, and state investment companies from those countries. If they reach final investment decision, that will be the largest private sector investment in Canadian history, period. And it will create thousands of jobs. It will have a direct impact on the national GDP and a significant impact. That is just one project. These are relationships that we're building, people-to-people relationships, deepening those relationships. And one of the advantages we have going to India is to be working with countries that are companies that are already interested or already working in British Columbia on how we can help them expand their footprint here, take on additional projects. And I'll pass it over to the Minister of Jobs about some of the opportunities we see there.
Thanks, Premier. I think there's two important points here. One, a recent trip that we made to Europe, we saw some real success, but it takes time. For example, in Ireland, we met with biomanufacturing and life science companies there, and we were able to attract Castle, which is a education practicum that now is being deployed here, which gives us biomanufacturing capacity in British Columbia. In fact, expands our life science sector. In the Netherlands, we were able to sign an agreement around agri-technology. Netherlands is a leader in that space. Now there's a partnership with SFU, and our companies are benefiting from that technology and that research. What's really important around Asia is that it's not as simple as we have a product and we want you to buy it. The relationship is the most important thing. People want to see the Premier. They want to see ministers. They want to see companies go there and build a relationship because that is the foundation of what the trade can look like. And that's why it's important for the Premier to be there. It sends a strong signal. And the response we've been getting from businesses and leaders, political leaders, is I think a bit of happiness that we're finally able to come there and have these meetings, but a second, strong desire to be able to partner as we move forward. So I'm excited about the opportunity. What I've been hearing from business leaders in British Columbia is they're excited about it as well because they know what the opportunities are with the soon to be third largest economy in the world. So lots of opportunities, and we'll be able to show some real results pretty quickly.
Okay, and as a follow-up, over the last several years, Canada and India have not had the strongest relations. The Canadian government years ago did accuse the Indian government of being involved in a murder of a Canadian citizen here in BC. Was this sort of taken into account when considering this trip? And what would you say to people who maybe do have concerns about strengthening ties given some of these past histories?
Yeah, British Columbians, and I count myself among them, were profoundly concerned about the murder of Mr. Najjar and certainly the pronouncements of the Prime Minister at the time. Since that time, individuals have been arrested. There's a criminal process underway, and I have confidence that the criminal courts will be able to come to and bring to light any issues related to that. The federal government is engaged with the Indian government on issues of shared concern between India and Canada. That's their proper role. Our proper role as a subnational government, as a province, is to ensure we're looking after British Columbians, and in a moment of opportunity and warming relations with India, to ensure that we're benefiting from that, delivering jobs for British Columbians, and particularly in sectors that have been particularly hard hit by Trump's tariffs, like the softwood industry. So it is important work that's happening at the federal level. The criminal process will continue. And for our part, our engagement with subnational governments and leaders and companies in India is an important part of looking after British Columbians as well.
Next, we'll head to Marissa Burney from the Canadian Press.
Hi, regarding Venezuela, what was your reaction when you first heard about Maduro's capture, and how does this improve the case for an oil pipeline to BC's coast?
Well, I like many Canadians, am glad to see the back of Mr. Maduro. He's a terrible man. He was a tyrannical dictator and brought poverty and misery to the people of Venezuela. I'm sure people with personal connections to Venezuela feel that acutely in Canada right now and are glad to see him go as well. But also, like many Canadians, a bit unsettled by the unilateral actions of Donald Trump and his commitment to international interventions like that in other places, specifically the comments of senior leaders of his administration around Greenland, about interventions in Mexico, and his comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. I find that all very unsettling, and I think that it underlines the critical work that we need to do as Canadians to deepen our independence, to stand on our own 2 feet, and the urgency that requires. On the issue of a pipeline, I certainly think that we should reflect on how we ensure we're using our resources well. I wonder why the conversation is not about our existing publicly owned pipeline that is not at capacity and could be expanded. And I want to underline that there is still no private sector proponent, and my strong opposition to the idea of using tax dollars to build a pipeline across the north over the opposition of Indigenous voices. If we've got tens of billions of dollars to spend, I think we should spend it on a refinery, and we should develop oil products for Canadians and for export instead of being reliant on American and Chinese refineries to do it for us. We've got to stand on our own feet here, and building that capacity and jobs in our country is something we should be talking about, and as opposed to shipping raw resources out as quickly as possible when we already, frankly, have a pipeline that could do that right now.
A follow-up here. The RCMP has said India was involved in the murder of a Sikh leader in Surrey. Are you prepared to address this or be questioned by Indian officials about the push by some Sikhs here in Canada for an independent homeland in India?
I know that there are concerns that have been raised by the Canadian government. There are concerns that have been raised by the Indian government. Those issues will be dealt with between the two federal governments at the national level. There is a criminal trial related to the issue of the murder of Mr. Najjar, which is a cause for serious concern for British Columbians and certainly for me. And I have confidence that criminal trial will deliver the information that British Columbians need about that and hold people accountable. For our part as a subnational government, as the province of British Columbia, meeting with states in India, meeting with companies and leadership there to ensure that as relations warm with India, that British Columbians are benefiting from that, and particularly sectors that have been hard hit by Trump's tariffs, like the softwood sector, that we're supporting British Columbians with jobs and opportunity in this unsettled global atmosphere.
Next, we'll head to the phone lines and start with Katie DeRosa from the CBC. Go ahead, Katie.
Premier, you talked about, this is the discussion at the federal level between the Canadian government and the government of India, but do you expect to see any backlash from the Sikh community in BC about, strengthening these ties when the relationship hasn't completely thawed? Like, do you think that this trade mission will anger some?
Thanks. Well, I don't think it was just Sikh British Columbians, but I think it was all British Columbians that were concerned about the murder of Mr. Najjar and the allegations that were made in Parliament. There is a criminal trial process underway, and I am sure that the individuals responsible will be held accountable through that process. And I think that's an important process that needs to play out. The second piece is that the federal government has been working with the government of India to raise concerns with them. And I know the Indian government has raised concerns with the federal government about their concerns about what's happening in Canada. That is the right place for those discussions to take place. We have challenges with the United States. We still work with the United States. We have challenges with China. We still work with China. Making sure that we're engaging in these conversations and supporting British Columbians with jobs and opportunity, while also making sure that when people act illegally, they're held accountable, is, I think, the way forward. I'm going to pass it over to Minister of Jobs.
Do you have a follow-up, Katie?
Yes, I want to get the Premier's direct response to Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, basically underlining the events in Venezuela as, she says, emphasizes the importance that we expedite the development of another pipeline. So how do you respond to, Danielle Smith, pointing to the events in Venezuela as a case for another pipeline to BC's coast?
Sure. Well, Premier Smith has her MOU with the federal government. She and Prime Minister Carney will work on that. I believe that one of the core requirements of that MOU needs to continue to be that there is a private sector proponent that's willing to pay for that. In the 5 to 7 years that a new pipeline will take to get built, assuming a proponent can be found, British Columbia will have no fewer than 6 LNG export facilities reaching final investment decision and beginning construction, worth tens of billions of dollars to the Canadian economy, thousands of jobs. And to be blunt, I think that we should be discussing how we strengthen our country by using our resources and developing them here, including the potential for a refinery here. So if the proposal from Premier Smith is that tax dollars should be spent, given the low price of oil, to build that pipeline, I think we should have a serious conversation about whether that's the best use of tax dollars. I don't think it is. I think we should be developing resources for Canadians and we should be developing resources for export. And that's why I would be supportive of discussions around increasing refinery capacity here in Canada, if the plan is to use tax dollars. We've got a pipeline behind us that is not at capacity, that could easily be expanded. That's not the topic of conversation for some reason, but it could be.
Next, we'll head to Alec Lazenby from the Vancouver Sun. Go ahead, Alec.
Hi, Premier. I just wanted to ask what this of India is to help improve BC's economy at a time when we're facing major headwinds from the United States. Just wondering your thoughts. We'll get the provincial budget in February, but your thoughts on the economic outlook for the province in the next year. We've seen sectors like forestry be hit hard, mill closures. At the same time, you're putting a lot of your eggs in these major projects basket, some of which the projects won't be done for a number of years. But in the short term, what do you expect to see in terms of BC's economy in the coming year?
Thanks, Alex. You know, it's a remarkable time in that our economy in British Columbia is under significant pressure, as is the entire Canadian economy. But it is also a time of remarkable opportunity that is coming from that pressure, in my opinion. Just over the Christmas break, we had $2 billion of investment decisions come to British Columbia in the form of two major mine expansions, Artemis and Mount Milligan. This is just a fraction of the significant potential investment in our province, the $20 billion in projects on our major projects list, the tens of billions of dollars on the federal government's major projects list that are located here in British Columbia. What we have to do is deliver on those projects. The province is under significant financial pressure. Resource prices are low. The forestry sector has been hit hard. We're going to have to stay focused on those core priorities, on jobs, on affordable homes for British Columbians, on healthcare, and delivering on those things. Economic development is in service of British Columbians, to give them high-paying, high-quality jobs to pay for the services that they need. And that's where our focus is going to be.
Follow-up, Alec?
Yeah, to ask about Bill 15 that was brought in last spring in response to, the threats from the United States. It's still stuck in consultation, to my understanding. The province is undergoing consultation with First Nations. When might we get that bill in place? And what does this say if, that bill is still stuck in consultation? What does that say about your comments at the time that needed to get this bill passed quickly in order to, fast track projects quickly? But, over, almost a year later, it's still stuck in consultation.
So there were a number of important components to that bill to respond to the threat from President Trump. First of all, it provided the capacity for buying British Columbia, Canadian, and free trade partners products first over American products. That has resulted in significant additional opportunities for British Columbian and Canadian companies. It provided the framework for internal trade negotiations across Canada, and British Columbia led the way in establishing for the first time in this country free trade in goods. And we are pushing hard for expansion to food and alcohol products and services. So it provided the framework and the legislative ability for us to do that work, and that leadership that was demonstrated by Minister Kahlon and Minister Gibson before him in driving that work forward. The component that you're talking about around fast-tracking projects, our work around fast-tracking has continued project by project on our 20-project list that we have. Mount Milligan was one of them. Our permit times were 50% what they would typically be for a project of that size because we worked in close partnership with First Nations, but also with the company to maintain high standards but expedite permit times. We can do even more, even faster, and we are finalizing the regulations, and I look forward to having them in place. It will be an assistance to us, but it is not a limit to us in being able to move quickly.
Next, we'll head to Justine Hunter from the Globe and Mail. Go ahead, Justine.
Hi, thank you. I'm wondering if you have a date yet for meeting with the Alberta Premier and the Prime Minister regarding the MOU. And since that's such a light question, I'm going to squeeze in the Alberta Premier has sort of outlined 3 possible routes across British Columbia for a new oil pipeline. I'm wondering if you're going to use that meeting to try and put some emphasis on one route over another?
Thanks, Justine. No, I don't have a date yet for that discussion. The bottom line for this project is there is no private sector proponent. One would think if there was a company interested in building it, they would have an idea about what route they would want to build, but of course there is no company involved. If this is going to be a publicly funded pipeline project, then I think the federal government in Alberta should be clear with British Columbians and Canadians about that and about the cost of it and about the opportunity cost and where else those dollars could be placed to grow our economy and create jobs here in Canada for Canadians.
Do you have a follow-up for the Premier, Justine?
I do. Just on the India trade mission, I'm wondering if you can talk specifically about which sectors you're going to be promoting and a little bit about what the potential for growth in those sectors are.
Thanks. I'll pass that to the Minister of Jobs.
Thanks, Justine. So there will be going to 4 specific areas. We'll be in, of course, Delhi, where there's going to be a big discussion. The Premier is going to lead around forest products, around energy, around critical minerals. I'll be heading over to Bengaluru. Bangalore is considered the Silicon Valley of tech in India, where we'll be talking about life sciences, tech sector, AI, quantum, etc. We'll be heading over to Mumbai, where we'll be having discussions again about forestry products, around critical minerals, around energy, and then we'll be up in Chandigarh, where we'll be having discussions around agri-technology and clean energy in particular. So there's it's going to be a busy, short but very busy trip, and of course a lot of opportunities that we're exploring.
Next, we'll head to Mr. Mark Page from the Black Press. Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Premier. Good morning. What can you tell me about potential amendments that might be introduced to the Declaration Act? What will be included and when will they be introduced?
Thanks, Mark. We're doing that work currently. What I can say is that the amendments will make it clear that what we said in the legislature when that bill was introduced, when it was voted on, and all members of the legislature, regardless of party, supported it, remains true today, which is that the Declaration Act commitments were government-to-government commitments. They were work that we committed to do in partnership with First Nations governments, and it was not for the courts to take over that work. And so the amendments will make that clear. The other bright line that we're making clear for British Columbians is that private property of businesses and homeowners cannot be and should not be bargaining chips in reconciliation. This is work that the provincial government is to do with First Nations, and people's homes and businesses need to be secure. They need to have certainty in their title. So that's the work that's underway, and I look forward to being able to share that with you as quickly as possible. But we will be introducing those amendments in the upcoming legislative session.
Follow-up, Mark?
Yeah, I spoke with Robert Phillips from the First Nations Summit this morning, and he talked about growing frustrations with the BC government among BC First Nations, saying that introducing amendments to DRIPA could actually cause reconciliation work and negotiations that are already underway to grind to a halt. And he said that development being done in partnership with First Nations and BC could be slowed as a result of this. Also, 59 First Nations have now signed on to a letter opposing the introduction of amendments to DRIPA. How do you respond to all this?
Yeah, I mean, this is challenging work. And one of the things that was underlined in the discussion in the legislature when the bill was introduced was that there were going to be good days and there were going to be challenging days. We're in the challenging days. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we have had some court decisions that require us to make the intent of the legislature, of our government, clear, which is that this is work for our government to do with First Nations governments. This is not the work of the courts to do on behalf of government. This is too delicate, too tender, too important for that to happen. When we see court decisions, they bring huge uncertainty. They bring unpredictability, and they bring division. And so keeping matters out of court, staying focused on the negotiation work we've got to do with nations directly is the path forward. And I just fundamentally disagree that the courts should be directing this work. And that is the message I've delivered in private, I've delivered in public, to First Nations leaders across the province and to all British Columbians. That is our government's commitment to protect private property, businesses, and individuals, and to do the work directly with nations, not through the courts, whenever we can.
We have time for one last question, and we're going to head to Jared Yeager from the Western Standard.
Hi, Premier. So when the decriminalization pilot finally does come to an end, British Columbians are going to be wondering what the impacts were. And so I'm just wondering, has there been data kept on those impacts, and will you be sharing that publicly?
Yes, my understanding is there were concurrent studies that were done in British Columbia, supported by both public health officials in British Columbia and at the federal level. And the intent is to release that data on the impacts of the decriminalization pilot.
Just changing topics. So it's World Cup year. Before the Olympics, I saw videos circulating. You were at protests where you were saying the Olympics shouldn't take place on stolen land. And, over the past 15 years, not too much has changed when it comes to Aboriginal land claims and such. And so I'm just wondering, you're all in on the World Cup this year. So what's changed your mind?
Yeah, that's not correct. I was a strong supporter then, as I am now, of ensuring that the basics are looked after in terms of people's human rights, people struggling with homelessness, people struggling with addiction in the downtown east side. That's where I was working at the time. Continues to be a priority as Premier, that we're supporting people, that we're building supportive housing for people, that we're getting people off the streets. We're doing that work. And we need to make sure that there are opportunities for British Columbians to have fun and celebrate as well. We can do both things. We are doing both things. And these FIFA World Cup games are held in partnership and with the support of local First Nations, who are host nations as well as British Columbia. And we really look forward to welcoming the world. It's going to be a wonderful celebration. It's going to be very good news for our hospitality sector. We'll be welcoming people from around the world. But the interesting piece is it will also be a remarkable business opportunity for the province. When we welcome people from around the world, we'll be using it as an opportunity to outreach to business leaders from around the world to get interested in British Columbia, to look at what the opportunities we have here, and to facilitate their presence here with understanding more investment opportunities here to create jobs for British Columbians.
And that concludes today's event. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Great.
Oh, Minister Kahlon is going to provide some remarks in Punjabi here.
For those that need it for Punjabi. I don't think everybody does. But ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਈਬੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਆ ਵੀ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਡੈਲੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ BC ਡੈਲੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਮੇਨ ਫੋਕਸ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਵੀ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਸਟਰੈਂਥਨ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੰਗਲੌਰ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਮੁੰਬਈ ਤੇ ਚੰਡੀਗੜ੍ਹ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਨਾਲ ਮੀਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਚੀਫ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰਸ ਨਾਲ ਮੀਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਮੇਨ ਫੋਕਸ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਕੋਨਮੀਜ਼ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਟਰੈਂਥਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਤੇ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪਸ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਟਰੈਂਥਨ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਟ੍ਰਿਪ ਤੇ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਅਪਡੇਟਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਉਹ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ of course small group ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਇਸ ਟ੍ਰਿਪ ਤੇ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਗੇਜ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲਸ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨਾਲ ਬਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਐਕਸਾਈਟਡ ਆ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਓਪਰਚੁਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਕਾਫੀ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਆਲਸੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਮੈਂਟਸ ਮੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਵੀ ਰਾਈਟ ਨਾਓ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਡਿਸਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਫੋਕਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪਸ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੇਜ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਉਸ ਏਰੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਊਗਾ
Yeah, that concludes today's event.